Good morning. Welcome to episode 35. There you are. How's that for starting the morning? Bit of bass? No? Andy, speak.
Yeah,
Hello? No?
Episode 35.
Do you know, I'm still thinking of that monster voice
That
you
was
applied. Yeah,
amazing.
I had the squeaky one.
Squeaky cheeky. Because you were squeaky cheeky chipmunk.
And you had the monster.
Booming
How
voice.
are you? How are you?
Do you know what, mate? I've not seen you since yesterday.
Look at you with your 2 coffees.
I had 18 yesterday. I'm going for 19.
Why have we got 2 coffees?
Because the guest, you've seen our guest to the left.
To my right, yeah.
I do that every time.
I know.
Yeah, he prefers black coffee.
He prefers black coffee, so you snaffled that.
I snaffled. Yes, good morning, Adam. Andrew Reid from Resilient Business Systems, episode 35.
Well, there you go. See, you wanted to embrace the singing. I told you.
I did.
We've got a guest.
Another one.
I know, another one. Fantastic. Would our guest like to introduce themselves?
Yes, I would.
No, not you.
Sorry.
Shut up, you over there.
Sorry.
No, I think after this debauchery, I'm going. I'm leaving. I'm on a different planet to you guys.
We were all very normal until the press
I
recorded.
don't think I can compete. Episode 35.
I don't know. Oh, he
Gets
fits right in.
in.
There we go.
There we go.
So please introduce yourselves. Tell us where you're from, what you
soprano.
do. Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far. So I'm Andy Davis, and I'm the managing director of Trident Manor.
What does Trident Manor do?
So this is one of them difficult questions that people ask me, and I used to. So we enable the protection of assets, which means whether it's physical, whether it's personal, whether it's information, whether it's reputational, we'll help an organisation protect their assets from adversarial or non-adversarial threats.
See, I've
Wow,
always, I've known obviously Andy for a while in various guises, whether it's been events around or just
Cooking on
I've only
coffee.
got one, guys.
but whether it's an event guys, like you know where we're socialising, or whether it's just been passing in the corridor and this, that, and the other, and to hear about Trident always interests me
It is.
because it's actually fascinating what you do.
Oh, I've said that to him. He went, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. I'm like, absolute BS. That's incredibly. Every time I speak to him, I'm in Saudi Arabia. I'm going to New Zealand. Oh, hang on. I just realised something. Adam, where were you a few weeks ago?
New Zealand.
Andy, where were you a few weeks ago?
New Zealand.
And at exactly the same time.
I know.
And
How
we
spooky
visit
is that?
the same spaces as well.
Absolutely. It was
I think we just talked. We ate the same pies as well.
Steak and cheese pie in New Zealand, by the way.
But he doesn't know about the Fergberg.
The Fergberg, yeah, I didn't get to Queenstown, but you went to Wellington, and did you do the Te Papa Museum in Wellington?
I may have been at Te Papa.
May have been. There we go. Yeah, yeah. Te Papa's a fantastic museum, and then there's the Auckland War Memorial and the museum there. That is incredible. We were chucking a rugby ball around in the grounds with the kids. You know, and it was good.
Not in the museum.
Not in the museum.
Thank goodness for that.
Andy would have thrown me out, I bet.
No, exactly.
But yeah, there's massive grounds, big park area. It's a fantastic place.
Good stuff.
And it overlooks the whole city.
Yeah.
It does. It's up on a rise. There's
Yeah.
so many volcanoes in Auckland that you climb up one and you can just see all of these various mounds. I wouldn't be surprised if that museum was built on one of those. Is it?
It is, yeah.
He knows about everything.
There we go. He does. He does. So, museums. I love them, right? Personally, but I know it's not just museums. It's all kinds of things, and you know, we'll perhaps get into some of the projects loosely that you'll be able to talk about and what you've worked on and things like that. But for me, being able to go to a museum, a library, art gallery to see historic art and things like this, absolute important part of society, I think, because it protects and preserves what's gone before. I think it's always interesting to learn, reflect on the past. I suppose you agree with that, do you?
It'd be terrible if I said no.
I hope so, because I think it's fantastic. Business plan. Yeah.
So, interestingly, when I left the Foreign Office, I got approached by a company in the Middle East, and it was called TDIC, the Tourism Development Investment Company. And Abu Dhabi had the foresight to look at diversification from oil and gas. And what they wanted to do was to establish the tourism and cultural sector. And they invested tens of billions, doing so. So I was part of the process at the development stage. So, for example, you now have the Louvre Abu Dhabi, which is open, and it's a fantastic place. So I was working with the design teams, but I was the head of security for TDIC. So that meant I was involved in the design aspects of different museums. I was involved in the operational aspects of Abu Dhabi Art. So 100,000 people coming through the doors
Wow.
for a 3-day program.
Wow.
International loans coming in from galleries around the world. And so that was great to be part of that. And the opportunity came for me to set up Trident Manor, and I took a few weeks off. And what I realised when I was walking around here in the northeast of England was we've got so much beautiful historical history and culture. We've got museums, historical places, but if you're not funded by the central government, the means of protecting them is, it's a bit haphazard because they don't have the funding, they don't necessarily have the knowledge. So it was one of those opportunities where we started working with different projects, helping design museums, helping design their operations, working with them to ensure they can show, but in a safe manner, their exhibits, to the wider public. And as such now, for the past 8 years, I think we're getting calls around the world for the delivery, not only of our consultancy services, but we're also the only UK-based organisation that established accredited cultural protection training. So we've now delivered that out to over 3,500 people around the world. Even in the last month, about 150 people have taken our training courses.
Wow.
Here in Darlington.
That's what I was going to say.
Here in
all
Darlington.
here from
we
Darlington.
have the man.
I was going to say, actually, not here in Darlington.
No.
Yeah, I know. You're always on the road.
All of this.
You're always on.
I'm definitely always on the road.
Yeah, you are indeed. Wow. So was that your pathway to get into this? Because that was one of the questions I had.
Yeah,
was
how
like,
did you get into this?
How did you get into this?
So my pathway, actually, there's two strands to the pathway. The cultural side has always been that appreciation of different cultures, different natures. Believe it, 1979, 1980, those were you born then?
Almost born.
1970.
Well lied.
So I'm a County Durham lad. So
Yeah.
imagine a County Durham lad being told he was going on a 2-week holiday to London. Brilliant.
Yeah.
As the train was pulling into King's Cross.
Take your passport.
I didn't even know I had a passport.
Did you? Oh, there you go. Then.
As the train was pulling into King's Cross station, my mother said, "Oh, we're not going to here. We're going to the Soviet Union." I thought, what? Where? They'd obviously thought that as a young wayward lad, I would have done a runner.
Yeah.
I just shrugged my shoulders and said, yeah. So, yeah, in 1979, 1980, during obviously the Moscow Olympics was during 1980, I was in the former Soviet state of Armenia, which is obviously an independent country now. But that got me to really appreciate the different cultural heritages, going into Red Square, going around St. Paul, the churches, and that was as a 13, 14-year-old. And so I've always appreciated the history. I've always appreciated, I jokingly say, the North East has got more cultural heritage from, because we've been, sorry for the term, but we've been raped, pillaged, invaded by the Norse, by the Vikings, by the Romans, by the Scots. And it's given us this rich cultural heritage.
Just popping up various places I could go to see those things.
And it's one of those where we've had to look at our fortifications, our defences, and things like that. So that's the cultural side has always been there. I've always had this fascination with history. Interesting when I was, for me, art historically was somebody graffitiing on the walls in County Durham. But because I had to self-study in Armenia, part of the syllabus was actually studying art. So I got to actually read about and understand the different artists. So talk about Monet. And so when I came back, I was literally a different person. But it helped me. And then the security side comes from being formally trained in the contradiction in terms intelligence corps, military intelligence.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did the security, formal security side came from the military. The intelligence was part of that. Then I became police officer and involved in personal safety and security, but also still doing police intelligence. Double contradiction. And then I joined the Foreign Office as a diplomat, specialising in security, and that was after the 9/11 attacks, where they realised they had to have a different sort of security management person in their embassies. So, when we talk about that, it's the physical security, it's the personal security, it's the counter-espionage, it's protests, etc. And so that took me to Uganda, then promoted and went to Colombia, where I was responsible for Venezuela, Guyana, Panama, Costa Rica. We had a few troubles in Saudi Arabia, so I went to Saudi Arabia, and then from Saudi Arabia across the Gulf, and then my last posting was in Pakistan, where I ran all the security operations, which was, believe it or not, so rewarding because we were there during the 2010-2011 floods, and we were able to get aid into the Afghan-Pakistan border regions and provide life-saving equipment, and to be able to do that in a secure way. And again, this is where our strapline, enabling the protection of assets. We enabled the assets to be delivered so that we could help tens of thousands of people, and that's, I suppose, to the highlight of my career from that side is the ultimate. To be able to actually achieve that was great.
I knew a small wedge of that story.
Bearing in mind, before you came in, Andy's going, I've no idea what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, and now I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'm speechless after that. That's incredible.
That is absolutely incredible. What a beautiful checkered history, but all credit to Mum and Dad.
A checkered history.
In a good way.
In a good way. But all credit to your Mum and Dad taking you over this. How long were you over in Moscow?
Well, we weren't in Moscow, we were in Yerevan.
Sorry.
In Moscow, I got told off. In the and I was admiring the beauty of this church, and I had my arms folded. And this Orthodox priest came up, and he almost you see on the Blues Brothers where the nun slaps them with a cane. I felt as though I'd been slapped with a cane. Don't fold your arms; it's disrespectful.
Ooh,
sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Cultural awareness.
Definitely. So how long in total?
So it was March through to October 79 and March through to November 80.
Incredible.
I was going to say, but to be impressioned at that age, and that's where you've got your love and that whole aspect, and obviously that kick-started that whole career path that you've just amazingly took us through. So really, really positive in terms of what you've seen and what you've done. I mean, incredible. So where was the turning point that you went, right, I'm now going to set up on my own? Because obviously the Foreign Office and diplomat, that must have been a great job to do, but where was the turning point for you?
As stupid as it sounds, God's truth, I wrote my business plan. So Trident Manor, the name of Trident Manor, was decided in 1984.
And?
Really?
I wrote my business plan in 1984, and I actually wrote what I needed at that point. The prices have changed slightly.
A bit of inflation.
So
just a little bit
just
of
a bit of inflation. But yeah, I actually wrote my business plan on a waterlogged airstrip in Northern Ireland called St. Angelo. And I actually wrote it I finished it in 1985, and I realised many people from the military go into security.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, hold on, have I got the skills?
Yeah.
And actually what I realised was many military people, they deal with military, they don't deal with people.
Yeah.
So the opportunity came to join Durham Constabulary, which actually introduces you to people.
Yeah.
And so that was fine. But then I also realised that, hold on, I want to work internationally. I've got the skills to work internationally, but I've got no international experience.
Yeah.
You can't really class Northern Ireland as international. So when the opportunity came to join the Foreign Office, that gave me that experience. And then I realised I don't have any corporate experience. How can I advise corporate bodies if I don't understand the corporate world? So that's when I was offered the position in Abu Dhabi, I took that. And it was at that stage, my team were being made redundant. And I saw their packages, and I thought, hold on, if that's what they're getting, what am I going to get? Yeah. And I took the opportunity at that point, so 10 years ago, to actually ask for the redundancy, and I used that to set up Trident Manor. So it's been a dream from 1985, but yeah,
it's come to fruition.
It's come to fruition.
So how did you come about the name Trident Manor?
The Trident is synonymous with the military unit I was with in Northern Ireland, and the manor is there was a certain place where different intelligence training was delivered in the military, and that was called something Manor.
Yeah.
So therefore, Trident Manor came from that, and people would say, "Where's Trident Manor come from?" But then I'd have 2 or 3 people would say, "I like that. I know where that's come from."
Right. That must be really nice.
But now it's just, I couldn't imagine being called 10 years now. It'd be a hell of a rebranding exercise.
It would be enough, wouldn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. But no, that's...
That is it. Sorry,
See, I kept him talking while I gave you some time to think.
Yeah, no, but then he kept talking and he kept blowing my mind. Right, that is incredible. So, okay, day one, you go, it's time to go into Trident Manor. Obviously, you got your business plan, so you know what you're going to do. So, take us through some of that execution. Like, you're like, I'm ready. But as I said, when I first set up, I opened my laptop day one at my kitchen table, and I was like, not going to find any work just here. Just doing this. Yes, I can do Facebook and all this sort of stuff, but I need to get out and meet people. So, how did you sort of launch? What was that first sort of 6-month period like?
So when I left Abu Dhabi, we decided to have a 3-week holiday on Yas Island.
Sounds perfect. Perfect startup plan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go on holiday first.
So get that on your checklist. 3-week holiday.
And I got a telephone call. And it was, somebody said, "Oh, we hear you've just left." I said, "Christ, news travels fast." And they asked what I was doing, and I explained, setting my own business up, and they then offered me a contract straight away internationally in Central Asia to do specialist consultancy work. To help them with all of their governance and develop training programs to minimise the risk to staff and personnel. So my first, and it was for an oil and gas company, and so dare I say it, it was disgusting money. Yeah. But it helped. Obviously, that gave the bedrock of and that comfort of knowing that I could achieve this. But actually, I walked away from that. And the reason I walked away from it was the money's great, but the reality is that I wanted to grow and develop Trident Manor. Yeah. And so that's when I came back. It was interesting because my knowledge, expertise, and circle of peers were all international. One of the most difficult things I found was trying to explain the risks that each organisation in the world, UK and everywhere, the risks that they face and the steps that can be taken to manage them. And the amount of times people said, "I've got insurance." Hold on. Insurance is after the event. Yes. What we want to do is prevent the event.
Absolutely.
And so the first 2 years of when I've been back, I still had 80% international work. And it wasn't, the balance wasn't right. No. I knew I had to switch that. But it took time. It takes time to help people understand how we help. Because if you use the word security, there's a misconception of Paul Bart, Mal Cop, it's a two-dimensional figure that's not of any use and value. Where actually, I sit and work and advise boardrooms about strategies, or post-incident, I'll be called in to assess and evaluate. what went wrong, what can be fixed, how can we minimise our exposure in the future. So all of them things took time to actually people to get their head around. And so therefore, I found it very difficult. I found it frustrating. What I also found frustrating was actually trying to work from home as your wife's banging the Hoover vacuum against the door. I'm trying to concentrate.
And then your feet.
That must have been great in a Zoom call. Yes, absolutely no problems, Minister. Just 2 seconds, I need to lift my feet. Thank you, dear.
But we eventually got it, so we redressed. But I also realised I didn't want it to be one person. Be a consultancy and I can just use a spare bedroom. What I wanted to do was try and flip things on the head, and by that I mean historically consultants are ex-police, ex-military, have got the pension, and they'll do this. But the reality is, in the corporate world and certainly in the cultural world, it's a different type of security. That's a sledgehammer.
Yes.
It's not the silk glove, and you need you need to understand the softer approaches. And so I thought it was really important to flip it and look for bright, intelligent young people come out of university or not even out of university, who we can bring, who've got the personality traits, who've got additional skills. So different ones we brought in have got linguistic skills, have lived internationally. Some have had the ability to do coding and things like that. So they're bringing something different. Then we give them the skills about the consultancy stuff. We give them the skills to assess risks. We give them the skills to actually understand physical security, technical security, operational security, and bring it all together. And we also give them the skills to deliver the training. So I'm very, one of the things I'm proud of is the fact that we haven't gone down the traditional route, and I'm bringing in young people, and them young people are now going on and doing wonderful things in their careers, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you finding, because we do now live in a world where, if you like, the historical, the antiquities, they need to be more onshore to the public, but obviously by doing more onshore, am I right in saying that now there's more risk to make it more onshore?
Not really.
Right.
It's always been there.
Right.
You almost say a cultural venue, museum, gallery, library, etc. They have two split personalities.
Right.
The daytime personality, when they're open to the public, is that the guard is lowered.
Yes.
The protective guard that you would normally think of, the doors, the locks, is lowered because the whole purpose of museums, galleries, libraries is openness, education. Let people come, understand, and learn from, as you pointed out, learn from past.
Yeah.
And in many cases, if you consider the past, it gives you an insight into the potential future.
Oh gosh, 100%.
So during the daytime, lots of the traditional protective layers have to be lowered to enable the operational functionality. And I think that's where we differ, because we understand that. We don't adopt let's have a concrete wall around this, barbed wire on the top, and no, you can't go and see the Mona Lisa unless you pass through a metal detector.
Yes.
So it's looking at that. But then at night time, when they're close to the public, what you've got to remember is the value of some of the assets inside these museum and cultural venues runs into hundreds of millions. So you've got to have appropriate levels of security to protect them. So the character changes daytime, nighttime, and when people say, "Okay, here we go, we'll provide an intruder alarm system." Wow, sorry. An intruder alarm is going to notify somebody to do what? It doesn't prevent, it doesn't delay. So it's knowing and understanding the different characteristics. But I don't think that the risk has changed. Some of the profiles have. So, for example, the protesters. we think, okay, just stop oil, gluing the hands on. And normally, historically, there's been an association with the protest. Why are we doing this protest? Okay, well, we'll target the British Museum because they're being sponsored by BP, so Greenpeace historically would do that.
Yeah.
Now, Just Stop Oil use the publicity of a high-profile venue to get their message out. And so, but the risk hasn't changed.
No.
It in many cases it's always been there, because if there is the opportunity, if there is the attractiveness of the assets, then bad people are going to want to get hold of them.
Sadly, yes.
And if the levels of protection aren't suitable or appropriate, then they're going to rub their hands with glee and think, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Got me thinking about the Natural History Museum. We went there last year. It's fun. We had such a good day.
Yeah.
Like, it was
The
just
kids loved
incredible.
it.
Yeah, like I think, seeing the budget constraints that a lot of these museums are facing anyway, and then it's kind of trying to balance. But I love the way you talked about delaying and preventing and all that. And then I'm like, we need to talk about cybersecurity that way.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
It's
really
ex-
yeah.
it-
We've,
it
and
is
that
exactly
is
the
that is
same.
a sideways shift to what we're doing. But I'm like, I can see the steps that you're going. Oh, okay. So it's not just your intruder alarm, which is saying, okay, so that's basically going. Something's happened.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's too late. And I was like, we need to talk about cybersecurity, because we are keen to be advocates for cybersecurity. And we're talking two-factor authentication, just simple things that people can do. Yes, you've got the more advanced stuff that you can do, but I think that idea of it's more than just an intruder alarm is. I was like,
it's really great.
that really, mate. I know that, mate.
It resonated with me with what Andy was saying. It's about that preventive, and obviously we know from working with us, Adam, that we do a lot of work with my customers to try and prevent it. Like, the biggest security risk that I have with all of my customers is the human. Yeah. If I spend my time invested in software, it's after the event, which again, it resonated with me. So now I'm dedicating more and more time to teaching my users how to spot a phishing email, how to spot the scam, how to do this, how to do that. And I found it's much easier because that person is the one person that's going, oh, that doesn't look quite right. I'll just email Andy like he asked me to. I'm glad you did. You've prevented it.
Yeah. So one of we talk about proactive prevention instead of reactive response.
I like it.
And the
I like
proactive prevention means that actually it's through things like training, awareness, vigilance, education. It's low cost, and it's one of those things that can be delivered at all levels by every organisation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The reactive response means that you've allowed the incident to happen, there is going to be a cost. There's going to be an operational cost. There's going to be the financial cost. There's going to be a disruption cost. There's going to be reputational cost. It's always better front-ended and be proactive in your prevention than responding reactively, because that reactive response is always costly in so many ways.
No,
and it doesn't matter
great.
whether that's from a cultural side or a cyber side.
Yeah.
And what we have to identify as well is museums, galleries are increasingly becoming targets for organised crime groups and cyber attacks.
Yeah.
We had the Royal Armouries was attacked last year.
Yeah.
We had the British Library. This denial of service disruption is a real issue. And unfortunately, when I was in New Zealand, I was identifying this to government officials and saying, you have to be mindful, you have to step the game up. It's not just for businesses, it's not governments, it's all organisations. Because if you imagine you've got 2.5 million artefacts in your archives, or you've got your online display, and all of a sudden the denial of service means you can't access them, or you've had a bug inserted so that what you thought was reference number G123 is now XYZ2.
Yeah.
And
so it could just be a disruption.
Absolutely.
Yeah, rather than actually. I think it's easy to think about people stealing a physical artifact.
Yeah.
yeah,
But like you say, it's that disruption. Yeah.
Yeah,
that
and obviously
really-
more museums are going online to try and attract them to come in, but they tease by going, look, this is what you can see. And I've noticed that massively. You think about it a couple of years ago, the museums and the galleries, I don't think well, they might have had an online presence, but it was very weak. Whereas now, it's out there.
There's a government drive from DCMS and by the Arts Council that there has to be greater outreach because there's communities that can't go into London or can't go into Edinburgh. So how are we going to get this messaging out to them? How are we going to let them appreciate the art that exists? And the online platforms are great, but from my world, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because historically, as part of any attack cycle by organised, and we'll talk about organised crime groups because if they attack, they are going to most likely be successful.
Yeah.
But they plan it. They do reconnaissance. Well, historically, reconnaissance meant somebody had to come into the ground and potentially were identifiable. Nowadays, we're making life so much easy, and when we do reviews of venues, we'll actually look and we'll do use social media and we'll do open source search, and we always go for let's have a look at their website.
Absolutely.
Let's see what they've.
Because it's the first open door that you can see.
I think Andy knew that I was in New Zealand before I walked in the room.
Yeah,
Because I was in museums.
exactly.
Is that how it works? Not quite. Not good. He knew I was there. He was tracking me all the way through. No, but I think that's a great. It's using that intelligence that people are self-purporting. We talk about being careful online and what you're doing, but equally it can be a benefit when there's criminal activity going on, and it can help you kind of find out what's happened, I suppose.
It helps the criminal. I mean, the amount of times we'll go and do the online search to identify where the sensors are, where the cameras are, what type of door it is, what type of locking mechanism is on a fire exit.
It's all there.
It's all there, and so that's why when people say, "Oh, we're going to have somebody come around and do a video," great. Let's sit down with them first. You don't show this. You don't show the artifacts.
You
by all
never
means.
even think of that.
I feel very targeted with that one because I do videos. Yeah, but that makes perfect sense. It never would have thought to me necessarily.
Because what we don't want to do
100%.
is make it easy for the criminals, and sometimes, unfortunately, that's what happens.
There's been a
for
bit
the right
of
reasons.
There's been a bit of a YouTube trend. I want to say carefully say it, but people trying to sneak into festivals, football matches, various. I think the Olympics at one point, and basically what they were doing is they were looking on social media for people taking selfies. So say you're, I don't know, a media person, and you take a selfie with your badge on. You've just shown them a copy. Another one is conferences, like corporate conferences.
Yeah, zoom in, get the badge.
Yeah, so what they do is they look on the social media to see the badge. But is anyone taking a selfie with their badge on display? And then they basically recreate that in Photoshop themselves to try and get past. Now, I know if there's scan checks and things in place, the various measures. But equally, the other thing that quite a lot of these YouTube videos done is people put high vis on, carry a ladder, and just walk in, and they don't get questioned.
No,
so,
unfortunately, we had about 4 or 5 years ago, we were working on site. Again, just at the end of the day, we heard some of the guys going like, "Where's this? Where's that?" Long story short, they looked at the video camera, and that is exactly what happened. A guy walked in and went, "Who's he?" But obviously, you're on a building site. There's so many people going around. He just had a high-vis jacket. Nobody batted an eyelid that he just started picking up laptops and walked out.
Sorry, I'm laughing because we get paid to do that.
do you? Brilliant.
It was you.
That is fantastic.
So we will do an announced and unannounced tests of the security, because
I know it's highly serious, but it also sounds so much fun trying to do it.
It is hilarious, and it's amazing how I think in the dozens of times we've done it, there's only ever been one challenge, and the challenge was half-hearted.
Yeah.
And once the phony documents that we actually obtained from the internet give grant and authority to the individual then was taken and escorted around everywhere that they wanted to see, including the sensitive areas. So it's a test, but it's what you're doing is you're testing. You're not testing individuals.
No.
You're testing governance, policies, practices, procedures.
Absolutely
How
right.
robust are they?
Yeah.
And then what steps can we take to manage and mitigate them? And most of it is around having good governance, because many organisations, that's where they lack. Sharing that governance, making sure that everyone's aware of what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and it comes back to education through awareness and vigilance.
I was going to say, in terms of I do a lot of work in schools. So I was at a school yesterday taking photographs, and it's great because you come to the reception and they're like, "Hi, who are you? Who are you here to see?" And it's all electronic. It used to be the old book.
Yeah, but
you
now,
do. But it was all. It doesn't matter whether
yeah.
it's the new thing or the tablet. But it's always like, which member of staff are you here to see? And you say, "I'm here to see that member of staff," and that member of staff would come and get you. And I'm like, that's a really good system.
Yeah.
You know, especially I'm turning up to take pictures of. It was teachers, but it's like, you know, it's so important to get right. And I'm like, that's where schools, I think, are a good example of just that point of access. But you can't do that to a public venue.
No.
Hello, who are you? Would you like a ticket? Can we have your ID? You know,
but actually you can.
Can you?
Because there's public spaces.
Yes.
And the back of
I was going to ask you
spaces.
about this actually, because people might say, well, what about privacy protection and privacy law when you're talking about the video cameras and things like this? And I'm like, well, it's a different space, correct?
Yeah.
So you're subject to the terms and conditions of the organisation.
That's right.
Yeah.
So public space, you know, you talk about CCTV cameras, you've got your notices there. It's the same the world over. You know, you've got to provide that information that you're being videoed. Equally, you know, there's an expectation that if you go into a venue, there is going to be some form of protection, especially when you open to the public and you've got high value items. So that's an expected. Back of house is totally different. That is down to organisational requirements, organisational policy, practice, procedures, and having that clear line. You know, access control, absolutely marvellous. I love it as a tool. Because you can audit who comes in, who goes out, what permissions they've got, where they can go. You know, so not everybody needs access into the art storage area.
Correct.
Amazing how many CEOs or directors or security say, "Oh, I need to patrol in there." Why? You've got dirty boots and you're going to be walking in. No thanks.
No.
You're creating more cleaning. Get out.
No, exactly.
So there is that public-private space. In cultural venues, but it's the same in all organisations.
Yeah.
The foyers, lobbies are normally public space, but if you want to get beyond that, there's normally a degree of access control.
Okay. So how, in your lifetime of Trident now, obviously, again, we always ask this, but taking into account COVID, taking into account technology, so think about Trident and what you use, think about your customers and how they've used. How has technology benefit both yourself in terms of not having to travel, but I know you love to travel, but also how it affects the galleries and the public places?
It's interesting because if we look at it from if we're doing an audit assessment, anybody who says they can do a paper-based security risk assessment of your venue, walk away because they're talking twaddle, right? Unfortunately, I see it all the time. Oh yeah, we'll do a desk-based risk assessment. No, you can't.
No.
You've got to fit so AI is a wonderful thing. I hate it, but AI is a wonderful thing, right? It can do all these things, but it still can't go on the ground and assess from a human perspective.
Yeah.
Look at the human interactions, the social aspects, which, you know, when we talk about criminals are humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, unless we're looking electronically, but criminals are humans, and so therefore you've got to look at the physical barriers that exist. But you see, some people say, okay, I've got a locked door, secure windows. That's your physical barriers. Then others will say, I've got my intruder alarms, I've got my CCTV, we're protected. No. Physical barriers will actually delay entry. That's what gives you that robustness. The technological side will give you that notification. So someone's trying to break in. I can see somebody acting suspicious. But technology is an aid to operations and support physical security measures. So you can't, you know, some people, anybody says, very sure, we have protected so many. No, you can't. It provided a notification that somebody is breaking in. And guess what? Your very sure alarm doesn't stop them smashing that window, walking through the patio doors.
Correct.
So it's you've got to understand how the physical aspects interact with the technical aspects, with the operations. So it's no good having an intruder alarm and you have it fitted onto the entry-exit door. And on the entry-exit door, you've got a lock, right? And then all of a sudden, you close it at night, and you don't know how to set the alarm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something amazing.
It is amazing how many times I ask the question, how many of you have left the door unlocked?
Yeah.
This is in museums and galleries. And they go, sorry. Because we're humans.
We are. I was about to say that.
And best will we all have our positive intentions, but so technology is wonderful, and I've seen massive enhancements.
Good.
When we think about things like CCTV, it's normally called CCTV. It's VSS, video surveillance systems, or visual surveillance systems. We look now. That's got video analytics, and it's brilliant because they can reduce an organisation's need to have somebody deployed, because you can create trip lines, you can create almost geofence areas. Anybody comes in, all of this technology has really happened in the last 10 years. And it's brilliant because that I see as a wonderful tool to help in, so that you've got two guys sat there and there's a bank of 1,000 cameras. They are never going to see anything. But if you've got the video analytics involved, all of a sudden something happens that triggers a change. That screen comes up in the main monitor. Wow, now I can pay attention to that. Everything else is in the background. I can pay attention to that. So technology has come on great. How's it impacted Trident Manor? Well, firstly, the communications. Without any shadow of a doubt, we're holding online events, Zoom, Teams, whatever, and we're able to provide training to people who would never normally receive it. Mm-hmm. When after Sarah Everard, we did a free event about personal safety and security for women. We oversubscribed. We oversubscribed that much that Zoom gave us an upgrade to the account so we could accommodate.
Oh,
wow! And so a big shout out to Zoom. Really, really positive. And it was part of our social outreach. That's why we did it. No financial gain.
No, of course.
But it meant that we were able to speak to people who were in India, who were in Sao Paulo, who were in the USA, East Coast, West Coast. We could speak to people across Europe. We could speak to people, and they were all on this sort of call. That would never have been possible 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's really important. So we obviously use online for the delivery of trading. We do online, for micro conferences. I know we can, and we've talked about it for the IAASF. We know that there's the technology there to actually film and record our conferences and then share that wider. So I think technology has played a marvellous part. Intelligence was always about the collection of information and data and then processing it. The Internet of Things is a wonderful tool. The dark web is there as well, where we can actually scrape information, we can do assessments, we can collate, and then analyse information that's openly available. But we can also then utilise that and cross-reference that with, so for as an example, we were asked by a global client they had some issues in Mexico where potentially their staff were going to be, they were at risk from the Mexican drugs cartels. They wanted to know what level of crime existed, how much. And so we were able to use human sources on the ground. They were feeding back, cross-referencing that with social media that existed and looking and getting confirmation. We were able to provide weekly updates about the levels of murder, the levels of kidnapping that were happening in different areas. And so what that meant was that the client was able to make informed decisions about how to protect their assets on the ground.
Amazing.
And that's technology.
Yeah.
So there's some wonderful tools. some wonderful ways in which we can use it. I am very mindful that there's I won't name the companies, but there's certain companies that will scrape information and just dump it. But it hasn't been processed, analysed.
I was going to say the challenge must be processing. Like when you touched it before.
And so what you're then faced with is, great, I've got all this information, but you still got to employ somebody to do the analysis, do the process, and actually turn that into a valuable commodity. Otherwise, you've just got tons and tons of unworkable material. So I think it's technology is great. I'm definitely not a techno wizard. I have two members of staff who are in their 20s, and I just smile and look at them and say,
this thing here. Yes, can you fix it, please?
social media, double-edged sword.
Absolutely.
But I know how to use LinkedIn. That's the only one the team will trust me on. Yeah. They do the other social media. I do LinkedIn. But again, it's great for outreach. It's great for people seeing who you are, what you're talking about. But that also ties in with the more, how can I say, web pages are traditional.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah.
Because if we can use the social media to draw people to our web pages, then they can look at the 100 or so blogs that we've done. They can look at all the case studies that we've done. It gives them that additional information to help them make informed decisions, whether we are the suitable people for them. So technology is wonderful. I think because we've started to progress down this route of specialising in cultural protection, our name is now getting known.
Yeah.
So I've always said I'm terrible at marketing, but let me do my job and then judge me on that.
Yeah.
And that's what's that's how we've been able to go for 10 years, and then obviously we use technology to, here's our story, this is what we've done.
Fabulous.
I love it.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating.
What's interesting for me, Adam, is that when you, I hear you speak to Resilient, when I hear you speak to other customers, you literally epitomise, if that's the word, what Andy's telling you. Do the work, you let and take photographs of how resilient, you let the work talk for itself, but you're always saying your social media is that channel to your website, because the social media will tickle somebody enough to go, I think I need the services of HubSpot, Trident, or Resilient. They follow your social media link to gain more clarity on the website, but the website should have an easy way to go, right, I'm going to contact these people. So it's interesting that what you're talking about from a business point of view, I had Adam drum into me to go, this is what you're...
It's taken years. No,
but that's the strategy that Adam's doing.
It's about, for me, it's about getting people to know you. How do you get people to know you? You meet people, talk to people, tell the story. Absolutely. I think the key thing that you've touched on, from you're saying you're not good at marketing. Well, actually, you are, because you're saying you put something out on LinkedIn, someone might go and have a look at the website and they'll see the results. I'm like, perfect. You haven't gone on LinkedIn and gone, buy my service.
No.
Book your training. I know there's a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I think the girls book your training.
No, but that's what you have
Join our conference.
Yeah, but that's what you have to do, and there is a time and a place for that. But what you're also doing on top of that is look at all this information that might be of interest, might be useful, and actually might help inform your decision to make sure that you're getting the right solution. One of the things you talked about there, and I just want to go back to it, is a place where I used to work, and there was panic buttons underneath the table. And it was you talking about after the event. Anyway, we're working, and one of the panic alarms just went off. We hadn't pressed it. It was the other one at the other end.
Yeah.
It just started going off. So we reset it. And went, right, God, what on earth was that about? Half an hour later, a very out of breath security man comes running in the door going, I'm here, what's wrong? I was like, well, if we were being robbed.
The money's that way.
30 minutes later.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was having a bit of a shift, in fairness to him. Yeah. I think he was having a bit of but it just went off on its own. And we thought that's that. And I forgot that it was connected to our security support service. Yeah. 30 minutes later, this chap, I mean, he looked like he was having a shift from hell.
Yeah, bless him.
And he was like, I'm here, what's wrong? And I was like, that was half an hour ago.
Or sometimes it's quite good to go, it was a test.
It was a yeah. I think you would have screamed. But yeah.
In your lifetime, then, whilst I don't want to say the word "have you been privileged," but have you been lucky enough to see some really fantastic artwork, and obviously as part of your role?
Art is it really is art in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah.
So just the other day, I was looking at admiring Picasso's.
Wow.
And now I prefer the Gainsboroughs, the Turners, because to me, it gives me that insight into what was there at the time.
Yes.
Whereas obviously when you start looking at Picasso, it's wow, that's abstract.
Yeah.
But again, it's a
Wow, that's I like that.
There's Picasso putting his box. Get in there, abstract box.
That tickled me.
but
That
again,
was good.
it's looking and appreciating,
Of course.
in different ways. Honestly, there has been so many that I've had the privilege of seeing.
Yeah.
That there is nothing that really stands out. The only thing I will always say is when everybody talks about the Mona Lisa, I say, "How small isn't she? She's really small, isn't she?"
Tiny. Yeah.
So my question there is, I bet you, for people that won't necessarily know you as yourself, they might know the company, they might get you in. I bet people are taken aback when you go in, you go, well, actually, I've got all of this, because they might just see the security, the training, consultancy type thing, and then you actually go, isn't she small? Like you actually know the subject matter.
Yeah. Great,
that must
great
take
point.
people by surprise when you're going in, surely. In the first instance, at least.
Without naming, right.
Yeah.
So, security organisations or security departments of government bodies might call me in to do something. Now, their viewpoint is from a security viewpoint.
Yeah.
We approach it from a protective viewpoint, which means that we consider every aspect of it. I know that on the last assessment that I actually did one yesterday, but the last one before that, the head of collections was the person who had to take me around the venue. Now, the head of collections obviously has a concern because different things have been enforced by the corporate security team.
Yeah.
And so, she's obviously quite concerned. So I just sit down and say, right, first thing is, can we have a cup of coffee? What? Yeah, I want a cup of coffee. I want you to tell me about your museum, your gallery, your approaches. And straight away, they then start to understand that you're not just there to impose, you're there to listen. And then that's where you can talk about things like, well, okay, what about the invigilation side? How are you storing this? What about climate control? What about this? Have you had any incidents where, and you don't just talk about Billy the burglar.
Yeah. You don't just stick in a lock on the door and get a job done.
You start talking about protester threats, or you talk about the environmental threats. Has there been any cases of flooding? Have you had any of these? And it puts them at ease and then all of a sudden, while you're walking around and talking, you can then start saying, I love the way that you fastened this. Why have you got this? Why haven't you got this barrier? Because obviously this is a Gainsborough, this is a Matisse. Why would you not have these? And they explain, or you identify some really good practices. And you say, I love the way you've done that. And it's simple things like that. But what it shows is that actually you understand.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I think I understand both sides. I understand what's needed from the cultural delivery side, but I also understand what's needed from the protective side. And so by being able to dovetail them, I can actually support all.
Both, absolutely,
The reality is I'm there to support the client as in a whole instead of a section. One thing I hate, and you see it all the time, is different silos. Yeah. I'm this. No, sorry. Break down the silos. Let's work together, because ultimately everybody has a role in protecting assets. And I say that I'll say that to a CEO, or I'll say it, down to a gardener. Guys, you all have a part to play in the protection of assets in this cultural venue.
No, it's a really positive outlook in terms of that, because if you think about what you've just said there, the museum does go down to the gardener right up to the CEO, because, you don't want any of that one person to be the target or to be whatever like that. You've just got to think about it all. So I love the way that you've tackled it from a complete human side of things, and that's what I picked up from there. You can do all the security and the locked doors and the stuff like that, but it's the humans that you interact with.
It's amazing. If you speak to a security company, they'll say, "Oh, you need 20 guards."
Yeah.
And I say, and it really upsets security companies, I don't want to see a security guard in any museum.
Yeah.
Now, it can't be helped in
No,
some
no,
of the
yeah.
larger ones.
But
security personnel, to me, have two roles. One is patrolling, visual deterrent. Two is responding when something's happening.
just not 30 minutes later.
Not 30 minutes later. And I don't see security as being somebody inside a gallery doing invigilation activities. No. But there's a misconception about roles, responsibilities. But I do see that the invigilator inside the gallery has a really important part to play in the protection of those assets. They have a really important part to play in being alert and vigilant. They have a really important part to play in reporting any suspicious activity.
Yeah.
So that then the security team can pull that together, collect the information, analyse it, share it with the police, and hopefully prevent a crime taking place.
Yeah, and I think, again, what you picked up on the other thing about the cleverness of the VSSs now, the CCTV, where it's got break that line. But again, no matter what you do, is it fair to say the first thing that somebody will notice is human? Because he'll go, that's acting suspicious, or that's out of place. I mean, is it a fine balance? Because technology can only do what you've told it to do.
Technology can only do what you've told it to do, and it's what you feed into the technology.
Absolutely, that's what I'm getting at.
Now, if somebody is acting furtively, they might be able to pick up, AI picks up on that. But if somebody is cool as a cucumber, and they go in and they are just using their phone. I have to remember, no cameras allowed, and now everyone's just going in with a mobile phone, and they've
Yeah, I was going to say you've changed my, because I've seen some because cultural. Oh, I can't say the sentences
Culturally.
today. Thank you, sensitive.
Culinarily.
That's the pies afterwards.
That's the pie afterwards.
No, exactly. But obviously sensitive, and you're taking the images not appropriate. But then obviously, like you say, casing the joint,
Yes,
so to
exactly.
speak. Yeah,
It's
never.
very good.
So there is, and that's why we emphasise, lots of the training we do, I don't want it to be for security people. I want it to be for them volunteers.
Yes.
Give them the tools to understand what they're looking at. Give them the tools to understand different types of threats that exist, how the threats manifest themselves, and the simple actions that every organisation, every individual can take to play a part in protecting. And if they do that, we're not saying they're becoming security guards. What we're saying is you're just helping us protect the assets.
A pair of eyes.
Eyes and ears.
Eyes and ears.
Eyes and ears.
Yeah.
And it takes us right back to intelligence. Eyes and ears intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was watching a programme last night, and it was like, they said before they went out, and it was like, sharp eyes or something. Sharp eyes and ears, everybody, before they then went out and did it.
Wow.
But it's true. It's keeping an eye out. We I've worked for local authority, and we were always, we were trained to look out for, not to level you're talking, but we're always watching, and it's amazing what you'd see in public leisure centre, for example. We'd be looking out for a safeguarding issue. Like there might be a safeguarding concern, which we'd need to then know how to escalate and deal with appropriately. And obviously, if it's a public space, what are they going to do if they're leaving? What if we are seriously couldn't, like all of those sort of things. Then there was, everything from what do we do in simple thing as a fire, like the one that everybody sort of has to practice and this, that, and the other. But then there was terrorism threats and stuff like that.
I can imagine.
What the process is there, what we need to follow, how loudly do we follow procedure, so it's amazing to think. And that was just there. Then you look at the volumes of some of these venues where people are coming
Thousands
through,
of people coming through the doors.
equipped with smartphones as well, with everything on it.
Mind-blowing, isn't it?
It has blown my mind actually, and I love the idea about preventing and delaying. I think,
Yeah,
I think
it's really good.
That's something
Yeah,
I'm going to go away and
savvy
think
way.
about in terms of how we can implement that in just our comms about cybersecurity. Like, because
it's
you
been
know,
really
want to
good.
help
I'll
people.
share some images.
Oh, if you could, that'd be splendid. But no, it's really opened my eyes. And I'm also going to go and watch, and this is a light-hearted one, going to go and watch Wallace and Gromit: The Wrong Trousers again.
Yeah, because that
And
penguin,
reassess. Yeah, that penguin. I mean, there's so many things that went wrong in there, and I think that museum could do a better
do
job.
it better. They should employ him.
By the way, I love Wallace and Gromit. Absolutely love it. But,
Bearing in mind, he also said, "I've got nothing to talk about." That's 1 hour gone.
that's amazing. It's
That
been
is
so
incredible,
good.
Andy.
It's been so good. So thank you so much.
very much
I haven't
indeed.
talked about anything that Trident Manor does.
Well, you kind of have. I mean,
think it's a
I
brilliant
think
idea.
actually what I do want to do is, because you have talked about so much, I suppose, to consolidate all of that. You know, what are the ultimately, in simple terms, what are the core services that
Trident
you
do, yeah.
provide?
We protect people, you know. So you know, we're doing situations where we're employed in Mexico delivering services to people who are being faced by organised crime group, being kidnapped. We're providing personal safety and security programs for them to help keep them safe.
Oh, wow.
We're delivering consultancy services for post-incident analysis. So when incidents happen, we'll be called to do that. Simple. Well, I was going to say simple things.
Yeah.
But even my revisit back to Armenia was when the protests were happening. An American client, they potentially, one of their facilities was being targeted. So, I actually deployed within 24 hours from receiving the call. I was on the ground in Yerevan, able to speak with the local company, provide reassurance for them, understand why their staff had been arrested. But I was there when the actual revolution was successful, and there was a handover there was tens of thousands of people in the square, and we were able to deliver that safely for the client. So we still do intelligence work, we still do consultancy work. We'll work with national and international clients in protecting their assets. And I think the one thing I love is that there's no 2 days the same.
I can imagine.
Wow.
And I still love coming to work every single day, and I'm trying to pass that on to the younger generation. So I can maybe have 1 or 2 more holidays, but you'd have to get me up to the Arctic or the Antarctic to stop me getting. I'd still get telephone lines. So yes, I am a workaholic. I shouldn't be, but I've had a wonderful life. I've had wonderful experiences with wonderful people. I'd like to think I've played a part in helping, helping achieve the delivery of services, but also helping people stay safe and secure. Long may it continue.
Absolutely.
I don't think you could have said it better.
No, I think, again, Andy, another one where the trusted partner strand, we talked a lot about trusted partners. It's clear you are a trusted partner for the organisations that you work with, and we talk about, especially with small businesses, for example, about finding allies. So as an example, Andy's my ally, I'm his ally. He helps me with my IT. I help him with his marketing media.
Exactly.
And likewise for cultural venues, you are there to absolutely support people. I have been absolutely fascinated by that entire episode. It has been so good. So thank you so much for taking your time.
Appreciate that.
So we do have a question that we finish off with every week, and it is a bit early because we're filming this on a Tuesday, just due to bookings and calendars. But we always ask what you're doing at the weekend. If you can talk about it, that is.
He's thinking hard because he literally is like, I'm here Wednesday.
I was trying to work out when's the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
A few more days.
Right. I can tell what I'm not doing.
Okay, do that then.
It's easiest. I'm not travelling.
Yeah.
I'm not commuting. And so that means that the wife will have about 50 jobs lined up for me, but it is the bank holiday. So I and my daughter needs a new car, so probably what's going to happen is I'm going to buy a new car for me, and she's going to get my other car, so we have that to deliver down to Manchester, and it means I get a chance to see my grandson.
There you go.
That's fabulous. That's a great weekend.
What about you, Mr. Reed?
Got some friends coming over as per the podcast yesterday. Got
Yeah,
Liz and Paul
Tiger
coming up. Yeah,
He's
Tiger
a
Duff.
liar, he doesn't have friends.
I don't. Absolutely.
Just one.
Just one.
I'm his friend.
Absolutely. So now we've got Tiger Dove, Paul and Liz coming over. It's Paul's birthday tomorrow.
Yep.
So happy birthday, Paul. And as I say, we're going to fill up the bar, stock the bar up with Japanese sake, hopefully have a sushi meal, Mr. Do playing on that. So that's going to be all day Saturday. I need to get the arcade machine up to date. I've been neglecting it.
Is the word need.
Yeah, need. Michelle, if you're listening, I need to get the arcade machine up to
Need
date.
is an interesting word.
Absolutely. So I'll get that done. And then Saturday, relaxing, getting well into my Diablo 4, loving that with some online game with some friends. How about your good self?
So it's the Darlington Rugby Festival this weekend. Obviously, when it comes out, I'll be there. So loads of, we had over 3,500 people on site last year. I was even on Look North talking about it last year on the news. So we've got that festival coming up this weekend. Loads of rugby going on, which is great. So I'll be there coaching and supporting and taking pictures and doing all the good stuff.
It'll be fabulous. Sounds like a great weekend.
Yeah, then the third team have also got their semi-final of the County Cup, third team County Cup. So I might be popping up on the afternoon Saturday to go and help them, as in support them and carry water bottles or do whatever I need to do to be helpful. So
helpful. That's
and then just relaxing.
Gosh,
just relaxing.
Absolutely.
By the
With
way,
your Linux.
secured an open deck slot at the open deck.
I saw that
on the side. By the way,
I saw that on the Facebook yesterday.
Yeah,
so I liked it.
So
it was great.
open deck night I'm doing on the 11th of May, I think it is.
Book it in your diaries, people.
I've been
11th
given
of
the
May.
1 a.m. slot.
What?
Well, I'm already DJing that night, and I was like, well, I'm up for it. I'll just have to come afterwards. So,
Yeah, but you've just lost two potential people.
Yeah,
1 a.m. in the morning.
no, let's go. Let's go.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do that.
I'm gonna do that. That'd be great.
It'll be fun. Why not?
Right. Well, again, can I just say, Andy, fantastic. That has been an amazing hour.
Yep.
Insight
great.
into your world. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. And I think, like every guest, we'll get you on in 6 months' time and see how older and grave you look.
Thanks, Mr. Reed.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think I'll have to share the...
No, but thank you. That's been great. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
Hope you all have a good weekend again for the third time this week. No, second time.
Second. Yeah, we've got two more
Got
to
two
go.
more to do. It's podcast heaven.
It is. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you.